Season 2 of the Strange, Rare, and Peculiar podcast, a place to learn more about homeopathy, deepening your knowledge, expanding your universe of possibility in the world of health and well-being through homeopathy.
Homeo what?
Homeo what?
Good morning.
Oh, hello. I didn't know you were recording. Hello.
Good afternoon and good evening.
I always seem surprised, but it shouldn't be a surprise because you give me a lot of lot of warning, but it's not clear. Sorry about that.
I think you should be used to it because, it is always a surprise as to what comes out of your mouth. And most of the time, because I'm a bit more heavily edited, what comes out of mine.
Because I sit close up. The reason we have to be on one screen and not two is so I can pinch him so he doesn't say things he shouldn't say.
Yeah, that said, a shout out to a few folks who over the last week have let me know that they listen to us.
I know.
It was hilarious.
Yeah.
Like, for example, Greg Pace. And
yes.
Just what a lovely thing to say, hang out with you, sir.
So much fun.
Other people that mentioned...
Greg's a naturopath.
Yeah.
Actually, so we should talk about where we were that led us to talk about this. The Arizona conference, the Collaborative Homeopathy Conference. It was well attended. It was at Sonoran University in Arizona. And there were a lot of people, close to 100 people came live. And then there were a lot of people online. And it was collaborative between the AIH, the medical homeopaths, the naturopaths, the nurses, the vets.
It was bloody good.
Did I forget? It was great.
I tell you what, it was really, really good. But you've just, as usual, launched straight into it. But I need to...
Don't mess around.
I need a disclaimer.
What kind of disclaimer?
Well, because I'm squeaking like a 12-year-old choir boy. And...
you really are.
I am reversing, going backwards in age.
You're like Benjamin Button.
Yeah, right. But I'm a bit squeaky, and I have had a left-sided respiratory event.
And you're the best patient.
Oh, yeah, I'm tremendous. But anywho, I'm not quite sure.
Your homeopath loves how you give a good symptom. You're really clear with your symptoms.
Thank you.
And then you follow instructions, which is good. You follow up as you're meant to.
Always.
Can I just share my experience, however? Okay.
And I do what I'm told.
Okay. So this is welcome to my world. So Al was sick. He was really sick. Actually, I felt bad because he got on a plane not well. He didn't have COVID, but still, he was hacking. Uh-oh. Now you did it.
All right.
Sure. Do we have sound on the thing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Keep going.
Okay. We managed to do an edit here. I wave my hand in case. Anyway, okay, so Al wasn't feeling well. We get on a plane, and we weren't sitting together, which was good because you don't want to be sitting next to that guy. Anyway, for you, we get to Arizona. I really felt bad for you. Anyway, so he's not wanting to take a remedy for whatever reason. Okay, fine.
No, that's not true.
Is that not true? I'm not remembering the beginning. True. Okay, but...
No, I may well have taken one or two.
Without conversation? Anyway, it doesn't matter. But what happened was, we get there, whatever was going on, he was kind of stalled. And that happens when you get on an airplane when you're sick. It doesn't help your health. You had to get up early, all the things. Okay, so a couple days into the trip, I'm taking his case. And I'm literally sitting on the computer, having taken his case. And I'm repertorizing the case. And I look over at him.
She's a very good homeopath.
I look over, and he's taking a remedy. I said, what are you doing? I spent a half an hour on this. He said, I'm just repeating what I took before. I said, but we had determined that it wasn't working. And then he said,
Yeah, I forgot about that part.
You forgot about that part. Anyway, but...
I'm probably not the best patient. Sorry about that.
Thankfully, you're really healthy, and you just bust in acute every now and again.
Yeah, that's why this has been a little long for me, This is into my second week. Anyway, let's not talk about me anymore. I just wanted to justify the fact that Mr. Squeak is in the house. And and if any alarming sounds emerge, then don't despair.
Right. Don't despair. He's good.
All right.
Let's get back better. To it. You look good.
Oh, thanks, honey.
You're welcome.
I'm back. I'm pink again, aren't I?
If we were in my office, we'd be blue.
Oh, yeah.
My lighting is the worst.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right.
So actually, what I want to do is request comments. One of the other things that happened was that in having a long conversation with George Dimitriadis, he too mentioned that he listened to the podcast, and that was
get out of town, right?
I know,
Thanks,
absolutely.
George.
He said, but I didn't know how to comment, and I said, mate, write us an email. And so that goes for anybody, because I would have no idea how to respond to a podcast either, me being an old bloke. But please feel free to let us know. And if you've got any insights, technological especially, as to how to make Denise less blue
on my Zoom, that
would be really, really welcome.
I have the light. Al got me the light. Like his office is set up with all these lights to make him look good, so he doesn't have a shiny dome and all of that business. But I'm a little bit too interested in the aesthetics of my office than the result on my Zoom until I see it later on a recording.
It's a bit like a Bob Dylan album, I'd say, from about the late 70s. Could have done with a bit more production.
Don't get me started on Bob Dylan.
Anyway, back to Sonora University.
Okay, wait, but before we get there, just one more thing. Just music, folks. So back in 1998, I saw Joni Mitchell open for Bob Dylan at Madison Square Garden.
Mm-hmm. And your point is?
I feel like it should have been the other way around.
Yeah, you do not know anything about music. Apart from you listen to it.
I listened to a lot of it. But I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't know what to do. And he was big into his electric, that there's no acoustic. And I was 8 months pregnant, and it was really...
You're blue.
I wanted to see Joni, but I couldn't deal with... If Dylan had been a little bit more acoustic, I would have been quite happy with it. Anyway, that's neither here nor there, but if you are a Joni Mitchell fan and you think that she should have been the top bill and not Dylan, I feel you. I hear you. I see you. Anyway, back to the conference. Conference. See, this is the thing.
I was really heartened.
Yeah.
It was great to hear. It was great to hear everything.
Everything.
And while I've been doing this 36 years now, I remember back to, would have been at some point, I'm going to say, in the early days of the year 2000.
Yeah. When
I was at a seminar listening to George Dimitriadis. And the straight up clear logic, almost mathematical logic, and applied philosophy that he was demonstrating then just shone through 25 years later. And, I just, it wasn't an aha moment for our students that were there.
No.
Because they're grounded in it.
Exactly.
As soon as they get into that, midway through their first year.
So if there are folks who are thinking, well, what made this conference different or special? Why are they talking about this? So the main focus, I can't even talk. I'm still so tired from all of it. We just got back Wednesday night and it's now Friday early afternoon. And I had a full day yesterday. So today is like I think I'm in downshift mode. Anyway, but George Dimitriadis is the man behind the TBR2. So that is the Benninghausen repertory. And so it's not just about repertorization, however, although there is the very specific technique. No, it's not specific. It's an analytical way to look at symptoms. And I think even for people who may not be using the TBR2, in all fairness, I love the idea of it. I sort of do my self-editing on a larger array of remedies, but that doesn't stop me from absolutely loving that work, right? I just so appreciate the tenacity that George has on fact checking, getting all of the, making sure that every translation is correct, that every symptom is represented appropriately. But beyond that, it was the speakers who presented their cases and worked the audience through it was workshop style. It was like, there were people who were showing cases and how they got to these amazing results. Yeah, and I thought that was just great for everyone. You could have been, it would have been hard for someone who was brand new. You did have to have a certain foundation level of homeopathy.
Oh, that's interesting. Really?
I mean, you don't think so?
No, I don't think so. If you've got a foundation, if you know you're in homeopathy school and that which defines what we're doing, then I think that you could have stepped into the classroom.
All right, fair enough. But even those who are, advanced in their practice and have their own sort of methodology, there's no one who would have lost by attending because of just the reminder of the importance of fidelity to Hahnemann's system and to accuracy in our prescribing. And the folks who were presenting the cases, the sort of workshop-y portion of the conference just did a damn good job.
A damn fun job.
The whole thing. I loved it.
Yeah, soup to nuts. I totally agree. There's one grievance I have.
What's your grievance?
You really want to know?
I'm not sure when you ask it like that.
The one grievance I have is that we're still attached as a profession to N=1. And I think that's a mistake.
Describe that for people who don't know what you're talking about.
Okay. So
low on the evidence hierarchy, N=1.
Yeah.
The case.
So in the world, in the magnificent world of science. Oh, there's a squeak. Science, he squeaked. There is an appreciation of all things without bias, without subjectivity. Subjectivity is perceived to be a lower form of evidence. And if you ever, have a Googlies and just type in evidence hierarchy, hit image, you'll see there's plenty of evidence hierarchies. But at the bottom always is opinion or an N=1 case. And even so, my postulate, or at least my position, is that the next conference, or the conference I want to go to, I want to have a conversation about what we do about N=1, because students love them, and we've been teaching homeopathy for 230,000 years.
Through the lens of cases.
Through the lens of cases. You
right?
keep students awake by talking to them about your Natrum muriaticum cases, or your Hyoscyamus cases, or more likely your
I love teaching Natrum
mercury cases. And that's great, But at the end of the day, it's subjective. And there's, of course, a complete lack of ability of keeping away any background white noise to the single case study. So while tremendous, I would like to see a way for homeopaths start to engage in a conversation around meaningful upping of that particular game. I'm not necessarily advocating, only case series or only simple clinical trials are more important. I think that could be very bland as a conference. But you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, but I think you need to say more.
Well, I'll keep going then. Okay, The reality of my practice. I realized this soon after, actually, that experience with Demetriadis in the year 2000. But by about 2020 and 2004, so 4 years on, so like 4,000 cases on, I'm realizing that something's happening. And when I did a clinical audit in my practice in, I believe, 2004, on a rainy Easter, it was. And of course, it always rains at Easter. It's the reality of things. What I realized was
Easter occurs in the autumn in your parts.
What I realized was that my clients were no longer monogamous. And what I realized was that all of my clients, in fact, 94% of my clients, were seeing other practitioners and having other therapies in addition to mine. And that really stopped me cold for quite a while, because I realized, how then can I talk about my remedy as being the thing that made them better? I know that I looked them in the eye. We have that personal experience when we're clinicians and we see the change that happens. That's great, but that ain't science.
Right.
And so,
in other words, what you're saying is that when we are looking at our quote unquote cured cases, there are multiple confounding factors that can influence the outcome of that case. and with
only one of which is a homeopathic.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So another part of the conference that was super exciting for me. Sorry, but I just have to riff on this. That is getting to see people. Well, of course, it's always getting to see your friends, but it's getting to see some of your heroes. And one for me was, there were two wonderful surprises for me. And one of them was that I got to meet Joyce Fry and got to hang out, not just meet, but hang out with Joyce Fry. Joyce Fry is one of the, I would put her in the class of original contemporary researchers in homeopathy.
Yeah, one of the important researchers that
I mean, seriously.
Around.
And so when I was first looking to figure out how do I study homeopathy, I wrote her a letter.
A letter?
I wrote her a letter, snail mail. It was 31 years ago.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I don't think she remembered.
Before the personal computer?
I mean, maybe, yeah. I mean, I would have had a PC before then, but I would have had it for word processing.
31 years.
It would have been in 1993.
Yeah, I got my first computer in 90.
I already had a computer, but there wasn't really email in the same way that there is now.
I got mine in 94.
Yeah.
Cost $1 million.
Wait, your first computer in 94?
First laptop, yeah, a Dell 386.
I got mine in 1984.
You're kidding?
No, an Apple IIc, 1984.
Would have been like walking around with a brick,
It was
a suitcase.
not. No, it wasn't. It was like a small television with a goiter on the back and a big keyboard, and then the printer was the dot matrix printer. And you'd have to pull the things off.
No, the dot matrix, that was awesome.
Yeah, but no, that was my first computer, 1984.
Wow, you were an early adopter.
Yeah, that was my. I started college. Well, I don't want to talk about how old I am. Anyway, I'm fine. Let's keep going. So meeting people who
like a pretzel.
So Joyce Fry, that was
awesome. And then can I add to that?
Hang on one, because what she said to us, she was talking about. We were talking about research and talking about our, just the work that we're doing and the N=1 phenomenon. And right away she said, one of the issues with cases and case series is. How are you allowing for multiple interventions in the same case?
Yeah, exactly.
That was the first question.
She's a super smart person.
Exactly. The second person who I got to meet, and it was really funny because someone said, oh, there's someone who I want you to meet, and they wanted to talk to you yesterday, but there were a lot of people around, yada, yada, you didn't get to meet. And it was Michelle Dossett. Dr. Michelle Dossett, she was like a mythical creature to me. She's an MD, PhD, homeopath researcher. She got mega academic cred. And I just have been UC Davis. UC Davis now, yeah. Anyway, so we got to hang out also, and I cannot wait to talk with her more.
I know.
So those are, there are people that you just admire and look up to. So meeting Michelle was one of those, but meeting Joyce, I couldn't believe it. And we got to hang out quite a bit, actually, which was the highlight of my weekend.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
But are we done with that? Because I wanted to get to the topic at hand.
I mean, the topic at hand. That is the topic at hand.
Well, except that there was a thing I wanted to talk about with it.
Have we finished talking about my exposition of N=1? Are we done with that, are we?
Oh, no, go on. No, please, let's go back to it. I'm sure there's more. The confounding package. Sorry, that's what got me, because that was what Joyce said.
All right.
What do you want to talk about with?
No, I want to throw something out to the
the people.
To the people.
The listening public.
So, folks, if it is, as I suspect, a challenge that we focus on the story, the anecdote, and the clinical case. And that's, in fact, very often how we teach. Then what are we going to do about that? Are we happy with that? My question to you is, are you okay with that? Other professions obviously have moved on. So, the cure case is not what's taught in immunology or in histology or in any other branch of healthcare. It probably is to an extent in some naturopathic training, and to an extent maybe in some osteopathic.
I have mixed feelings about what you're saying.
So my question is, what do you want to do about it? There you go.
Okay. I have mixed feelings about what you're saying.
be mixed as much as you like.
Right. You do you. So, okay, here are my mixed feelings about it. So going back to this conference, because this is sort of our springboard. But we have to get to what I wanted to talk about, because that's going to be the name for this episode. And I'm really excited because we usually don't have a name for the episode until Courtney comes up with it, our producer, and then she has us all vote on it.
All right, let's move on. Let's talk about
Okay, but then we can use that to go back into this N=1 phenomenon.
I love it.
Okay, so who's on our homeopathy Mount Rushmore?
That's a great question.
Right? Who is on? So obviously Hahnemann, but I was thinking about this.
Why obviously?
Well,
are you serious? Who's on the Mount Rushmore of homeopathy?
You're going to have a Mount Rushmore of homeopathy and not a Hahnemann on there?
No.
Or homonym.
I'm going to say,
homonym.
Are there 4 faces on Mount Rushmore?
Yeah, but it doesn't have to be exact. We're not replicating Mount Rushmore.
I got 4 names.
Okay, wait, but why do you really think you could have a Mount Rushmore of homeopathy without Hahnemann?
No, I mean, is it voted by the user of homeopathy?
Well,
is it
would depend.
Just yours and my choice? Upon what criteria, madam, are you saying such and such deserves to have their face cut into the stonework of some Dakotan mountain range?
And you know what? Because part of what I do in my art world is I like to carve faces. I think I would get out there with my little chisel, and I would get up on a scaffolding, a cherry picker. Anyway, but
I'm just playing with you because, of course,
I know you are. But wait, let's go back, because if you were at the conference that we just attended, I think we would have I think people would come to consensus quite handily about who should be on that mountain. But if you are at different conferences, I think you would have some different ideas about it.
Well, I think I think 4's a good number.
Okay.
And you're not going to like what I have to say.
Go ahead. I know what you're going to say, and I'm not sure. Anyway, go ahead.
You don't know what I'm going to say. I have no idea. So
you can write it down on paper.
So it's really simple. Because first, of course, you've got Hahnemann, the founder, and the Hofrath, and there's, we don't even need to justify that selection. But I think based on inspiration, on hard work, on defining and delineating who we are and what we do, we can't go past this guy, right?
Yeah, of course.
So
he's if you're listening and not looking at this on video, he's pointing to a painting of Hahnemann behind us.
So the second name on the list would be Bönninghausen.
Yes.
And the reason that it would be Bönninghausen is because not that he did anything new necessarily. He wrote a bunch of books, but I'm going to say codified, is that the term? He articulated extremely well Hahnemann's work.
Yeah.
He was Hahnemann's mate. And
did they meet in person?
It's a fine question. They certainly wrote a lot to each other.
They did, didn't they? But
I wonder what would have prohibited them from meeting.
Right.
I can't think of anything that would have got in the way. The third name on the Rushmore,
I know what you're going to say,
is Steph.
That's my Mount Rushmore. But I think I would have the only vote. And actually, at this conference,
I want to put Steph there.
Of course, everybody there called him Stopf, which because I talked about him. I had in my presentation, so I just will say the honor of getting to open the conference with a history discussion. And I have this thing that I do in a lot of my lectures about sort of how far we've gotten from the center point in homeopathy. And I finally have started to create the visual for it. But basically, I talk about homeopathy. It's a thing, and Hahnemann and his system are in the middle of it, and he systematized it, yada yada yada. And then over time, all these different teachers have great thinkers, charismatic teachers, great providers, practitioners, whatever. Then each of them has their own ideas coming out from that central hub of Hahnemann, and at spokes going out from the central hub. And at a certain point, we've drawn another circle around the outside and incorporated all of these people's inputs into homeopathy, whether or not they are appropriate. And anyway,
I agree with you.
Yeah, and it was the first time I did a visual, and I had in the inner circle of Hahnemann,
Philalethes.
well, I had Stoff, and but of course I called him Staff because I'm a girl from
Well, if you're from
New Jersey.
Australia, you would say staff.
Staff. Anyway, and I had Staff, I had Benninghausen, and I had Lippe.
And that's the fourth, and you and I are in complete alignment.
But I don't think that most others would be. I think most people would be hard pressed to include Staff.
Well, that's why. Can I just amend the criteria?
Yeah.
Because let's just say that Mount Rushmore there's only one Mount Rushmore, and it's related to one.
And it's already
country.
taken.
But let's talk about the basketball team, because if Hahnemann's center.
Oh.
And you got Benninghausen and Staff.
Oh my gosh, like a fantasy football league, but we're going to do baseball, basketball.
What I'm saying is that you need a fifth player on the team. And so who's the fifth? Because I think we are in complete alignment with our four starting players.
We're in alignment
on Team H.
But we are alone in thinking that Stoff is going to be on the Mount Rushmore. People don't know him. If you are from the English-speaking world, who's everybody going to say needs to be on there? They're going to replace Staff with who? Kent. Of course, because the mustache is going to look good in this.
No, he's on the bench.
He's not on the. But if you're talking about what the most of the world, I mean, look at, dare I say it, the can't get it out. The CHC exam.
It's very Kentian oriented.
It's very much a post-Kentian, and I think it overemphasized Kent over Hahnemann. Emphasized Kent over Hahnemann.
Yeah, so in this conversation, you clearly don't watch enough podcasts, or sporting podcasts, because who makes the all-time starting five or.
But they don't always make it on the Sports Illustrated cover. They might make it on the team, right?
Yeah, the point is that we're arguing about if Kent would make it to the starting five. And I would argue that he's probably sixth or seventh in the Mount Rushmore. You're totally right about his lineage.
But we're just talking about, look, I'm not an advocate for this. I'm just saying, if we're going by popular vote, is this the Electoral College of Homeopathy, where certain, you get a vote based on where you are? I mean, there are a lot of ways to go about it.
Well, then rank them, 1 to...
Okay, so if it's Mount Rushmore...
1 to 7.
That's more like a popularity thing. Who are people going to recognize? They're not going to...
No, it's about their impact. No, it's not. It's nothing to do with that. It's, for crying out loud, it's about their gravitas and about their legacy and about the shadow that they cast.
Right.
And the extraordinary things that they did. And it's not... it's like in say, rugby union, for example, you talk about the great coaches.
Mm-hmm.
They're never... the great New Zealand coaches never get in because everyone argues that, my grandmother could have coached that brilliant team.
Right.
So...
I mean, I think I could have coached them.
You'd be great All Black coach.
I think I would, because they need somebody like a girl from New Jersey.
Come on, Bodie.
The Bowden brothers. Let's go.
Knees up.
I could direct a haka. I could direct...
Come on, Smokey Joe, the rock and roll. Anyway, but I think it's really important because it's not just like who's the biggest or the loudest or the whatever.
I totally
when
agree.
you're supporting when you're building your fantasy team, it's about legacy and about shadow. But I'm saying Staff is still there, number 3 for me.
Do you really think that it depends on who's voting? How many people in
we wouldn't have a profession without his own path.
I put him in my inner circle.
Well, it's
of the 3 that I've chosen.
Stop fighting with me.
I am, and can I tell you a little story about
what?
Stoff? Well, I think you know the story, but so one of the things about homeopathy, of which there are many, is the alchemical lineage. My shtick is about the intellectual history of homeopathy. Where did Hahnemann get his ideas and all this business?
Mm-hmm.
And Stoff was one of the few people that I think actually had been exposed to all of Hahnemann's secrets.
Mm-hmm.
He was, and so with the presentation of chronic diseases to, at that point, who Hahnemann would have referred to it as his 2, I think the translation, I think Hale called them his greatest disciples.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the word he used? Or maybe most devout. I can't remember exactly, but what the...
It's interesting. You wonder what you have to do to become the most devout.
Yeah, but look what happened with Gross. So you had Staff and Gross, right?
Gross got in trouble.
Gross got in big trouble. He broke that vow immediately. Boom, out.
Oh, he apologized and crawled back in.
He never got back all the way.
Yeah, but he's not on the Mount Rushmore.
He's not on Mount Rushmore. Nobody even talks about him, right? I mean, not just as the author of the archive. Of course, I always call it archive. I feel like it.
Well, you were correct if you were German and talking about the archive.
Yeah, archive. So, but I don't think that most people are really, I didn't finish this sentence. I think when Hahnemann completed Chronic Diseases at around 1828, first edition, he said he brought it to those two, Staff and Gross, and, introduced them to the theory that was to come after his original four principled idea, right? Mm-hmm. Similars is the first principle, minimum dose and all of that. But he gets to 1828, and by 1816, he had already realized that there were some flaws, or no, not flaws, that it was incomplete. And therefore, it being, the philosophy being incomplete, there needed to be some revisions. And that's when the Chronic Diseases, their peculiar nature and their homeopathic cure was launched. And Staff and Gross were like, dude, don't do it.
You've taken yourself in a massive cul-de-sac.
No, but I'm just saying people don't know. I mean, look, Staff and Gross, right? They had a prominent position there, but Staff, I mean, he really, what I believe, based on the information.
It's huge.
He was huge in it. But I think if you were to ask anybody, go to the Joint American Homeopathy Conference.
Well, if you go to the Joint American Homeopathy Conference, then the first name on the Mount Rushmore would be, I don't know. I better leave it. So that's 4. We're in an entire agreement. So there's 2 controversial names left off the list thus far. Yeah. But before we get to the controversy, why is Lippi important today?
So I was gone.
Can I paint a picture? So I finished with a client a couple of hours ago, and I went into the kitchen, and I was making myself something. And I peeked into Denise's office, and she was curled up on the couch.
With my brand new 2-volume set.
Her brand new 2-volume set of The Life of Lippi and everything to do with Lippi. And what I did is I curled up on the other end of the couch and grabbed volume 2, and it was a really lovely moment. And so Lippi has dropped. How about that?
Oh, the book has dropped. I thought you meant he himself had dropped, like, from the rankings. No, of course. Finally, Andre Sain has been working on this book for
decades,
30 years.
1971 or something.
30 years. And I am working my way through every single page. Uh-huh. It's a 2-volume set. It's like, I don't know how many, 1,500 pages or something.
Yeah, it is.
It's good.
So it looks like a really good one, and really critical because, if, for example, you're enjoying a conversation about who would make your starting 11, in the fantasy homeopathy team, then, 2 of the people that would make it we've just talked about, but you might not know. And so how do you know about it? Well, Staff is begging for a biography. In fact, Berningshausen is as well.
Totally.
And then some of the information that I believe will glean from Andre Sain's book on Lippi is going to be really critical, and I think start to fill out some pretty significant gaps in the early years of homeopathy.
Yes.
I love it. So obviously the 2 names that are off the first 4 Mount Rushmores are your old boyfriend.
Yeah.
And James Tyler. James
Kent.
Kent.
As I now find myself sighing, Constantine.
Isn't it interesting that our team so far is only made up of Germans and Americans? Who's the first Brit?
And we live in Germantown. Hey. But notice who's not there.
Who's the first Brit?
No, so wait. What made me think to talk about this as the Mount Rushmore? I got excited about this morning. Yeah. I was thinking about just what felt really amazing about being at this conference is that everybody was in alignment. And what I loved about it was we might not all practice exactly the same, right? The fidelity part was there. Mm-hmm. This conference was chock full of presenters and attendees who are really serious about practicing homeopathy in the way in which it was intended, and by making sure that all of the materials that feed into this amazing modality are accurate, that there isn't a lot of sort of made up stuff. And so you rarely get that in homeopathy. So I was thinking about this morning as I was sneaking my first read again of the Lippi book. We've only been back for I don't know, not even 48 hours. And so I had ordered it the day it came out. It arrived sometime when we were gone, and I've been working my way through, and I've been reading the introduction, and it was interesting to see the different homeopaths that Andre Sain is acknowledging in sort of the opening salvo, which is the lineage of homeopathy. But what got me, sorry, and I didn't bring the book in with me, but I think what he says in one of in the very beginning is that Lippe was Hahnemann's best pupil.
That's what they said about Staff.
And that's what Hahnemann himself said about Melanie.
And what he said about Berninghausen as well.
Yeah.
Melanie doesn't make the top 10 for me.
Whatever.
No. But I think it needs to be.
Whoa.
That's kind of crazy.
That's not crazy.
If you're listening to us,
Thank
people,
you.
Then something just happened.
You didn't see this, but
as I besmirched Melanie Hahnemann, the lights went bizarre.
Yeah.
Wow.
Right.
Sorry, no, she doesn't make the top 10. She maybe could be goalkeeper.
Goalkeeper is one of the most important. Actually, that's perfect. Being the keeper is the perfect position for her, because the keeper is directing everything from the background. They can see everything that's happening. Mm-hmm. They're directing both the offense, but they're also keeping track.
I think there's a better one. The British burly homeopath, James Compton Burnett, much larger man.
You need a big mountain.
He wouldn't have to move anywhere. If he's goalkeeper, he could have stopped anything coming from 100 yards by just shifting his bulk. He'd have blocked
the box.
He would have. He would. No, he would, for me, probably after Herring, Kent. Then for me, I'd get in Hughes and Burnett. As influential, extremely effective, influential, but if you're legacy-making homeopaths.
If you're going to talk influential, you've got to have Kent.
No, because I believe that is
influence is a neutral statement.
Well, no, it's not. It's the influence has been overdone and is now being righted. He's still there.
What's his name? The guy that wrote.
He just had a funny moustache.
Gibson.
Klaus Gibson.
Yeah, I'm working my way through his. What do you call it? His Kent's lesser writings.
Yeah. So we're doing well. Are there any other Americans? Would you agree? Is there any name that I've mentioned that would not make it?
Well, I mean, I just think that where this would come down to, paper, rock, and scissors, best out of 3 is the criteria, right? Because if we made the Mount Rushmore of our dreams, right, and you've got Staff up there and not Kent, we'd have to live in a, I don't know, in an old Airstream tucked into a mountain because people come get us.
That'd be okay. I'd love to sit down and have a conversation about the way in which Kent's influence, while real, has in the last 20 years been rebalanced, and I think people see Kent in the light of or with the appropriate amount of influence that he had. I mean, he dominated US and therefore world homeopathy because in the 1890s, he did something strategically really smart. He wrote all of the books.
Yeah.
But in fact, his students really wrote all of the books. The reality is that his students mainly contributed to the completion of the repertory. They mainly contributed by transcribing his lectures on Materia Medica, and they mainly contributed by transcribing his lectures on philosophy. And in fact, had that not happened, and let's say we were left with his case books, we would have gone, Kent was a great homeopath.
Right. I mean, that was one of the things when you and I first got together, we had to negotiate. If you're two homeopaths getting into a relationship, you need to make sure you're sitting on the same side of the equation.
Two homeopaths walk into a bar.
Right.
Yeah.
And so there was one point when we were sort of having we were getting heated about Kent, and then you said something to me, well, how do you know that? And I said, from his case books. And you were like, oh, you're good.
Yeah.
That was nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well, but you're also good.
But on our Mount Rushmore, this is...
I think the controversial thing that people might want to say is that we don't have anyone from the 20th or 21st century on the Mount Rushmore. We only have Germans and Americans, and
Germans.
In fact, we only have Germans.
We only have Germans.
There's only Germans on our Mount
So
Rushmore.
maybe Mount Rushmore is going to be somewhere other than...
So it's got to be the German national football team. I'm going to suggest the German team of 1986 was when Karl-Heinz Rummenigge captain. Although the 94 German team was pretty good too.
Okay, now you're really in the weeds.
Just saying. The German team from 2016. Wow, that German team that beat Brazil 7-1 in the semi-final. Shall I move on?
I mean, no, just stay here.
The other thing is there's no women in our Mount Rushmore.
There really aren't.
And it's hard to do that. I gave a lecture the other day because it's our first week of classes. So I had a delightful week where twice I gave my lecture to the full-time students and then to the part-time students on the initial life of Hahnemann, or the first 60 years. And the students always say the same thing. I kind of guide them, but they always say the same thing. And they say, why do we know anything more about Johanna?
Johanna being Hahnemann's first wife.
Yeah.
Well, we know that her father was a chemist.
Well, yeah, but I mean, how would you like it if your legacy was that your dad was a hairdresser? And
Could very well be.
And the only thing that's known are the names of your kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, that's pretty shameful.
Well, that's also the
shameless. It's that she's, for the most part, invisible. We know fragments of her and her life, and
but she, I mean, that is
in between, and sometimes only from Hahnemann's letters to his mates.
Yeah.
I love the line that I have read a couple of times. I think it's in
Hale.
Francis Treuhertz's book on Genius of Homeopathy about Hahnemann, where he says, I must immediately end this letter because I'm getting a look from Mrs. Hahnemann.
Oh, yeah.
And I wonder what the look was. And it was like,
I love that. I forgot about
come and eat your dinner, you old bugger.
That's funny.
Hilarious. So we painted ourselves into a corner. I mean, we've got our
Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, but we've got our Mount Rushmore. But I mean, if you continued it to the, to the 7, if you're playing a game of netball.
But I think, I mean,
7's who the top 7 homeopaths.
I know, but
I can't get a 21st or a 20th century name on there.
But hold on a second, because I think I'm still not clear on the criteria, because if you're talking about influence, right, then I don't know. I'm fine, because I just can't imagine. And there's recognition. So like somebody like Staff, now you could argue that you get retrospective. It's like when Hilma af Klint, she's been around for 100 and some years. Her work has been quiet, and then all of a sudden she gets a retrospective at the Guggenheim, and now she's everywhere. Maybe Staff would have he'd have his Hilma af Klint moment.
I wonder about Peter Fisher.
Oh.
I wonder, if we're talking influence, gravitas, mana, that would be a name that might make the bench.
That is.
Or can we have the back of Mount Rushmore?
Wait.
What's at the back of Mount Rushmore anyway?
Parking lot.
Oh, stop. Are you serious?
No, I don't know. I've never been there. I just thought of something really funny, though, which was at the HRI conference in Rome. I was in the elevator with these 2 women who were, they were all gaga about Peter Fisher. Oh, for people who are listening who might not know, the late Peter Fisher was, where do you even begin to describe such a giant of a man?
I interviewed him and he's on the wall of interviews in the HRI archive.
Right, yeah, you can see him if you go to the HRI website. You can see videos of him.
He found homeopathy through acupuncture, through medicine and acupuncture. Yeah.
He's a medical doctor. What was his specialty? Was he an internist, GP?
That's a great question.
I knew that anyway, but he was the homeopath to the Queen, amongst many other things, and a researcher, and he there was just something so sort of wonderful and regal about him, and I've been to a few conferences where he presented, and lots of the ladies are just sort of a titter about him after. Anyway, I was in the elevator, and these 2 women were dying laughing, and they were quite proper British women, and one woman was talking about how she had gotten his card, Peter Fisher's business card. And she was so sort of enamored of it that she was trying to use it as her room key for an extraordinarily long period of time. She just had this like Peter Fisher encounter, and she was so fatutz by it that she couldn't.
Fatutz?
Yeah, fatutz.
What does that mean?
It's like a Yiddish word for like excited. Fatutz is like excited.
Excited.
Yeah.
That's a good word. I like it.
It's a good one. It's different than verklempt.
Right. Is that a?
It's the same thing, only it's a little bit like you're more worked up.
Oh, I thought you'd find it in the repertory. Oh,
you might. Anyway, but that moment with those women, and they were in hysterics. This woman was, she just couldn't stop laughing, and she had spent so much time trying to get into her room with Peter Fisher's business card. Oh, anyway, but the funny thing is I walk in on this conversation, and then they're trying to explain it to me, but the way it came across was that she was trying to get into Peter Fisher's room, and because she was so worked up about it, and we couldn't tell the story, and oh my gosh, we were just doubled over laughing. Anyway, but he would be a 21st century, 20th century, but I don't know. I feel like now we've moved into something else here. I think the Mount Rushmore, we need to think about this, because I guess where I was coming from, what made me think of it this morning, but the idea, what made me think of it was because I read in Andre's book about Lippe as the best pupil. And right away I thought about Hahnemann saying that Melanie was the best pupil. And I think, we talk about Herring as the heir apparent to homeopathy. And, and then of course, the fight with, Herring and Lippe, and then you've got Kent and all the, people, they think about homeopathy. If you ask a lot of people, they would put Kent up there. Oh, looking at the, one of the things that I presented in the lecture last week was looking at, that was a week ago today.
Yeah, you're amazing.
That was a week ago.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like it was 5 minutes ago or 10 years ago. Anyway, but one of this, I worked through slides that are just on the evolution and history and everything, but looking at the all the course books from the college here in Pennsylvania, right? And so they didn't even have Hahnemann's organon. Oh, it was in the first years of the college. They had these different philosophy books, and then it said, and also Hahnemann's organon. And also, how do you have a homeopathy college and also the organon? So I think that some people...
The fast and loose school of homeopathy.
Fast and loose, indeed. But Kent was so much more accessible because things were in lecture format, right? Kent's lectures are much more accessible than the organon. You kind of have to work for it.
Yeah.
Of course, what is that quote? It's from the last paragraph of the intro to the first edition of the organon, the Life of Ease.
Can't have a life of ease.
I wish I need to memorize that.
I like that Jeremy Shaw said something really lovely to me once. He said, gee, it's good at the top. You haven't got time to sit down. Which is another version of a life of ease is not in the homeopaths.
Well, so bringing up
lexicon.
When you bring up Jeremy, then all of a sudden it comes up to like, who are the teachers, right? Because that's really different than the students or the greatest pupils. Like that was the lens through which I was looking at our Mount Rushmore.
Well, you can't have it both ways, because if you want a clinician, if you're talking about clinicians, then if you're looking at the clinical legacy,
right,
or as opposed to the teaching legacy, those are absolutely different things, right?
Yes.
Where have you been?
What do you mean where have I been?
Why are you running around the place?
I went to get something. I know exactly where the first edition of the organon was.
That's my one, by the way.
It is. I know it's your one.
I know.
But just because we have to wrap this up because I have to walk the dog before it's time for the fireside chat. And let me see here. Author's preface.
Oh, silence on radio.
Here we go.
Death. Oh, yeah, keep going. All right, you got it?
I got it.
Yeah.
Oh, you said silence on the radio is death?
Uh-huh.
There was no silence. You
Well,
were
you're
grunting, moving all around.
Thumbing through the pages.
So as we wrap this up, this is from this. Stop. This is Hahnemann's the author's preface. I said intro, but it's author's preface to the first edition of the organon. Final paragraph. He says, "This warning, at least I would give at the beginning. that indolence, desire for ease, and obstinacy make service at the altar of truth impossible, and that only freedom from prejudice and tireless zeal avail for the most holy of the endeavors of mankind, the practice of the true art of healing. But the physician who works in this spirit follows close after God, the creator of the world, whose creatures he helps to uphold, and whose approval makes his heart thrice blessed.
Thrice blessed. Well, thrice bless you.
I love
You
that.
and you.
Right, all he is.
All he is.
I just think that is such a wonderful reminder, right? Because the folks that we were putting on our Mount Rushmore were not the folks that maybe had the biggest followings on Twitter, but rather the ones who had the most fidelity to the system, and who I think of Lippe as a bit the quiet force for pure homeopathy, that even though, I mean, he wrote quite a few polemics about, pure homeopathy and the truth about the modality and all that. And I think he followed that mandate of Hahnemann's, against indolence pretty well.
So who do you think?
And who's on your Mount Rushmore?
Who's on your Mount Rushmore, and who's in your the German national football team?
And
only of homeopaths. And at what point do we say, come on, let's get Lozier, or let's get one of the women,
Marjorie
Blackie
with her sandwich.
In fact, that could be a conversation for next time. Let's have an all-time.
Well, now I just mentioned her sandwich. You can't.
All-time homeopathy women's team.
Oh, I like it. The women's.
And let's go contemporary and.
But if we're going to do that, we should do both. We have to do the whole team, not just the women's team. I think we just need to do the team, because today was just like, just getting on the mountain with the chisels, and I don't think we got to the heart of the matter. But that's just.
Well, it's hard to keep track of you. So
who, me?
Yeah.
Arizona, what they say about the dry heat is really true. I survived. I don't do heat, and it wasn't too bad.
If you like being on the sun.
All right, everybody.
Folks, it's been spiritual. See you next time. Bye.
See ya.
Hey, homeopathic practitioners. This one's for you. HOHM Foundation needs your help. The 2024 Practitioner Workforce Survey is a critical project that will examine the practice characteristics of homeopaths in North America. By participating, you will contribute to the larger mission of the practitioner-generated research network of HOHM Foundation that strives to improve the field of homeopathy for a better tomorrow. Learn more at hohmfoundation.org. That's HOHM, HOHM Foundation.org.